This episode of the Topcast is proudly supported by our premium brand partner, opus1.io.
It's really important that you find the marketing that works for you specifically. It's going to look a little bit different for everyone. Some teachers, like the idea of being in front of a classroom of students is just not a fit. And that's totally fine. That doesn't mean you still can't do school outreach and help and support them in other ways. Maybe you're offering resources instead of like guest instruction with the whole class, or you're offering sectionals with small groups, for example. But finding the offer that feels aligned and supportive and really authentic to you means that the marketing will be more successful.
You're listening to the Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at TopMusic is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. Hey everyone, it's Tim here. Welcome back to the Topcast. Great to have you with us for another great show for today. As you know, this month is all about streamlining your studio on our blog, our podcast, YouTube channel, and in the magazine. It's a deep dive into making sure the business side of your teaching studio is operating as efficiently as possible, because we don't want to be wasting time and money on the admin. We want to be doing more teaching, more preparation, more spending time with our families even. So that's what this month is all about helping you do. Today's conversation is about streamlining specifically the marketing side of your studio, because this is a place that we can waste a lot of time and money if we're not too sure of what we're doing. Today's show is actually a replay of an amazing interview from our sister show, the TopMusic Piano Podcast, hosted by Dr. Rachel Ehring and featuring today's special guest, Kelly Riordan. Kelly Riordan is the CEO and co-founder of Outside the Bachs, LLC, a program designed to give musicians the skills to create their own private music studios and deliver the highest quality instructions to their students. And if you're wondering how to spell that, it's a clever play on words, Outside the Bachs, B-A-C-H-S. Go and check it out if you'd like. Her work has brought her to the forefront in music business education. In addition to hosting the Outside the Bachs podcast, Kelly presents regularly at conferences and universities. She holds a Master of Music in Performance and Literature and a Bachelor of Arts in Music. We all know that in order to grow, we need to market ourselves, but how? And what's the best way? Because all this stuff seems to change every week, doesn't it? Should you throw money at Facebook ads? Should you put flyers in letterboxes? Should you post every day on social media? Side note, I hope not, because no one really enjoys doing that, do they? Or is there another way? Is there a bigger picture way that we can think about marketing? In today's show, Rachel chats to Kelly about her 3-point marketing system for music teachers and simplifies all the decisions that we have to make to grow our studios. This is really going to be something that will hopefully simplify and streamline this side of your studio operations. So let's jump into the replay and get started.
Hi, Kelly. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk with you today. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Rachel. I really appreciate it. My name is Kelly Riordan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Outside the Bachs. We are an accelerator program designed to help musicians start or scale their private music lesson studios or multi-teacher lesson businesses. So we're focused on pretty much every aspect of the business, the back-end structure, the marketing, really trying to make sure that musicians have a duplicatable process, because as you and I have talked about just so briefly the other day, we don't learn these things in music school. So it's really helpful to have a community of musicians trying to do the same thing together.
Yeah, it's so true. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say today. And I have to say, I think you might be the first non-piano teacher that I've had on. So you should feel really special.
But you are clarinetist by trade. I guess I should be upfront about that one. Clarinet first. Although I will say for, like 4 or 5 years, I was teaching piano lessons. It was actually my primary instrument when I was a child. And then in high school, even though I obviously was taking lessons for both in high school, I started teaching a little bit of clarinet first at that point, and then ended up going to school for clarinet. It was where I ended up finding my groove and my passion, but I still taught a little bit when I was in undergrad and grad school. So I count sort of, we'll say that. A little bit of experience.
So we'll let you in. All right. So you do have some piano teaching experience, and I know that you have so much knowledge to bring to musicians in general about the business side of things. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say today. In your business, I was looking at your website and you recommend a 3-step process for getting and enrolling students. Can you tell us what the 3 steps are? And then we'll focus in a little more on each of them.
Absolutely. So my thesis, if you will, for a private music lesson studio is that there are 3 main things that we have to have established. A profitable lesson package, a predictable source of students, that's more of a marketing step, and then a repeatable enrollment process. So what happens after you have students that are interested from the marketing and actually taking lessons with you? How do we get them enrolled in the studio long term?
So I really want to focus in on number 2 today, but I do want to touch on 1 and 3 as well. So let's start with number 1, the profitable lesson package. Why is it important for teachers to have this set up before they ever get students? Why can't they just wait? It's kind of like a chicken and egg thing, right? Why can't they wait till they have the students and then figure out the lesson package?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to confidence in your marketing and your enrollment. If you know what you're charging and you also have some structure around that, it tends to communicate a lot more confidence to parents and potential students. So when I think about a package, yes, we have an hourly rate. And I know that you guys have done a recent episode on this, so I won't go too much into pricing. But if we start with the hourly rate, usually industry standard in the US, if you have a 4-year degree in music and at least some teaching experience, we start at $1 per minute. Okay. That's helpful. That's great. But that $1 per minute rate, so 60 an hour roughly US, is not the lesson package in its complete form. That's kind of our foundation for how we build our pricing. Ideally, I love to see studios, if at all possible, on a monthly flat rate tuition. So not even thinking packages and like buy 10 and get a discount or buy a whole semester of tuition or anything like that. Having the stability of a recurring revenue stream is really helpful. So if studios are on that monthly flat rate, we can use a studio management software to run an automatic payment system. And all that organization removes a lot of stress from the relationship. And also, again, communicates that confidence when you're doing your marketing or you're enrolling students. So if you have that monthly flat rate tuition, you meet with the parent for the first time and can just confidently say, my rate is $280 a month for a 1-hour lesson. And that includes all of these things, the lesson time, recitals, everything is all inclusive there. It's run on this flat rate auto pay system. There's just a lot of structure there for like a parent or student to just kind of fall into. And it really benefits the relationship in a positive way long term. We're separating the money from the music. We're not talking about tuition during lessons or sending tuition reminders, things like that. It really alleviates a lot of stress there. So then when you're on that consultation, you know what you're offering. You can have kind of a structure for how you explain all those things, and the policies make a lot of sense too. It's a lot more aligned, if that makes sense.
Yes. Wow. You gave us a lot just now. And I love it. I like that you actually said $1 per minute is kind of the baseline for if you have a music degree, because I feel like teachers, they don't want to say a number. They want to say, well, it depends on where you are. It depends on your education. It depends on all these things. So thank you for just saying it.
Yeah.
Saying the number.
We've done a lot of research on this in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm confident in saying numbers, and I'm happy to say it because you're right. I think it kind of gets, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, obviously for music teachers. And when those questions get asked, we all kind of dance around the answer. Like, well, it depends on where you live and it depends on your experience and your education. And while that is absolutely 100% true, there are some more concrete numbers that we can use. And I think the more transparent we are about that, the better off everyone is if we're all getting paid more fairly. So $1 per minute if you have that 4-year degree. Usually we say if it's a master's degree, if you have some kind of artist diploma performance certificate, closer to about 70 an hour, usually somewhere between 65 and 75. For a DMA, usually between 75 to 85. And then that would be in an average cost of living area. So if you live in New York or LA, where the cost of living is obviously significantly higher, then it's going to increase. And we usually use median home price as a way to help determine that cost of living adjustment. And then demand is also a big factor too. If you have a wait list, your rates should also go up.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So let's talk a little, since you mentioned the wait list. We all know that word of mouth is probably the number one way that teachers say they get students, but that feels so unpredictable. Like you can't necessarily move word of mouth forward. Well, we're going to talk about it. Maybe you can. But what are some other ways that teachers can speed up the process of finding students?
I'm a huge proponent of organic marketing. And in this sense of the word, when we say organic, I just mean that we're not paying for it. So no Google ads, no Facebook ads. There's a lot of like matchmaking websites like Thumbtack and OutSchool and Take Lessons and Lesson Base and musiclessons.co.uk. There's all these companies that have popped up, especially in the last few years. And while they're helpful in matchmaking, they also can take a pretty significant portion of your revenue. So I kind of put those in the same category. Anything that we have to pay for marketing, my first preference is that we set that aside. I do think, as a quick side note, if you have a multi-teacher studio, then yes, some of those Google ads and Facebook ads can be more helpful. Usually I would recommend in seasonal bursts, like big fall enrollment push, then run some really targeted ads, and that makes more sense. But when we think about advertising, you're right, word of mouth is a really popular answer in how most studios grow. But also, if that organic process isn't working, meaning when people reach out to you, if they're not enrolling consistently, or if your website isn't converting, putting money behind the marketing is not going to fix the problem. It just makes it a more expensive problem. So
true.
So if we can start with the organic stuff first, that's really helpful. That can be word of mouth. And we can actually create a lot of referral partnerships in our local area. I think what's hard when we hear word of mouth again in those Facebook groups is it's usually from, I'm going to make a gross overgeneralization. It's usually from very well-established studios that have been in one location for a very long time. And they may have done something different in the beginning when they started their studio. But now for the past few years, it's just been organic and all word of mouth because people know who they are. They have this great student base. Past students are referring and recommending them. It's easy to get that in your head as the primary source. In reality, it takes a lot of work to build that up. So there's a few areas we can focus. First and foremost, when I say referral partnerships, I'm talking about key people in the community that are already working with your ideal student. So school music teachers, for example, as a clarinet player, band directors, obviously a really great point of contact for me. And if we can go into schools and build authentic relationships, that makes a really nice impact. This could also be church music directors, homeschool co-op, networking with other private music instructors in the area of all instruments, youth orchestras, youth choirs. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But anywhere where students are already gathering that we can make an impact is really helpful. And then some other quick ideas too, like social media, of course. God, I love Instagram. I'm like, that's where I'm the most active typically. Social media can be a really helpful way to find students, especially for online students. And then we can also look at using even like Facebook groups or Nextdoor to do some light self-promotion, as long as the groups allow it. And that's not always the case for every group or every area.
And now a quick word from our premium brand partner, opusone.io.
When your billing runs smoothly, everything else in your school just clicks. You know exactly where your revenue stands, parents feel confident, teachers get paid on time, and you get to focus on your students instead of spreadsheets. That's what Opus One makes possible. Imagine tuition payments processing automatically, reminders sent out without you lifting a finger, and your books balanced before you even think about it. It's the kind of clarity and control that turns billing from a weekly stressor into a quiet background process that simply works. That freedom to lead, to teach, to grow starts with having systems that work as hard as you do. I'll tell you how Opus One makes it happen right after this.
Yeah, this is so good because I think when we say words like organic and word of mouth, people feel like, oh, I have no control over it. I'm just waiting for the students to come to me. I'm just waiting for people to hear that I'm a great piano teacher. So I love that you're giving us some specific things. So do you have any other things? So you mentioned band directors, church, maybe choir directors or something, places where students hang out. You mentioned possibly Nextdoor or the Facebook groups. So you're talking about like local Facebook groups?
Yeah. If you're looking at, local in-person students, then definitely focus on your geographic area. That's part of why Nextdoor ends up on that list, because if everyone's familiar with Nextdoor, if you haven't used it in the past, it's geographically locked to your area. So only people in the radius that the app sets around your address can see your posts, and you can only see posts from within that area also. So we know students can come to you for lessons because they're right there and they're local, which is helpful. But when we look at even those connections to, I think what makes it feel unpredictable a lot of the times is that the outreach historically that a lot of teachers have done. Let's take a school as an example. To a school music teacher, tends to be an email saying, hey, my name is Kelly. I teach lessons. Do you have any openings? Or do you have any students that are interested in my openings? Here's a flyer. And that type of email, because it's so easy to send, not easy. I know sometimes there's some nerves involved and things like that, but pretty low effort as far as what we're offering. It usually gets ignored, just candidly. Like school music teachers that I talk to are telling me that they're getting 50 to 60 of those emails a month. So they're ignoring all of them. And that is completely understandable. It's also not their job. They don't really need to be responding to those. They have parents and admin that their responsibilities lie with instead. So if we are going to send those emails, we have to be really intentional about what we're sending. And my preference is to always ask, rather than, do you have students that want to pay me money for lessons? Which, as a quick aside, I also think is a little creepy because we are a stranger on the internet, like asking for access to children. So not my favorite strategy. But if you reach out and say, how can I help you? Like, what can you do to support your program? What resources do you need? Can I come be a guest instructor? Here's some ideas. And build a real relationship there. It becomes a lot more predictable because now we might go and do a day of guest instruction in that classroom and visit with students and show off our teaching in real time. So not only can students experience it and build some excitement there, but the teacher sees you teach and it builds a lot more trust as well. So being really intentional on how you build a relationship as opposed to just like spreading flyers out in the community or sending a whole bunch of cold emails makes a really big difference in not only the results that you get from that action, but also how frequently you get those results and how that happens for you ongoing long term.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about my own, situation. If I have a student that I can't personally teach, or if I, hear about a gig that I can't do, I'm going to refer it to somebody that I know. It's not going to be some random person who emailed me. It's going to be somebody that I had lunch with, that I had coffee with, that I met at a professional event. Like those are the first people who are going to come to mind to refer students or gigs to. So,
well, and in that example too, Rachel, there's probably teachers that you have in mind or performers that you have in mind for certain kinds of opportunities. So the more specific a teacher is and who they work with, like as a quick example, my ideal student is high anxiety. A lot of my students are high general anxiety, high performance anxiety. Candidly, that reflects who I was as a young student. So like sharing a lot of the tips and the tools and the tricks that worked for me with my students is really fulfilling for me. I want to see them speed that process up a little bit, And if I'm really intentional about that and sharing that with other teachers, school band directors and the private teachers in my area, the youth orchestra in my area, they know that. And when a student comes to them with those concerns or is presenting those concerns, they know to refer to me. And there's other examples too, like just as a quick one, if I have a student that's nonverbal, this actually happened pretty recently. A parent came to me with a student that was nonverbal. That's unfortunately not in my area of expertise in my wheelhouse, but I have a fabulous colleague who can handle that and is so amazing and has done a lot of continuing education around that. And then I referred that student to her. I want it to be the right fit for a student, not just any fit. So part of that organic marketing too is just being really honest and specific. I know it's easy to be a generalist, but the more specific you are, the easier it is for people to align with you and decide that it's that they want to refer to or work with.
Yeah. So some of these things that we're talking about obviously take some time. It takes time to build relationships in your community. Let's just say hypothetically, if you were to move to a new location, what would be the first thing that you would do to start to build these relationships? If you needed to, it's, July right now, this will come out in August, but if you wanted to get students for the fall semester, what would be the first thing you would do?
It's funny. I actually did this a few years ago. I moved from Georgia to Wisconsin following my graduate program. And it was a last minute decision to move. I didn't have a whole lot of heads up. I think we had about 2 to 3 weeks before our lease ended when we actually knew where we were going next. And at that point, I had known that I wanted to build a studio. I'd, again, been teaching when I was in school. I was also, just as an aside, working in marketing to help pay for my music degrees. So that's where a lot of this background comes from, as I was working in organic marketing for like Red Bull and Anheuser-Busch and American Express and Cadillac. Anyway, that summer, because I knew there was potentially a move coming, I was doing a lot of research on studio policies and on marketing and on the things that I needed to set up to get ready for that relocation and that process. But in the marketing side of things, as soon as I had a location, I had an email drafted already. I'd already kind of written myself a template. And I started sending those emails about 3 weeks before school began, which was actually a really nice timeline with when we were relocating as well. So I was sending emails to all the contacts that we just talked about, introducing myself, offering some help. And for private music lesson teachers specifically, I was asking them to get coffee with me. I was saying, I'm going to be new to the area and I would love to learn a little bit more about what works really well in your studio and any recommendations that you might have. And also like looking to perform in the area too, a lot of chamber music. So if you have any, recommendations for connections there, I would be really excited to just get to know you and hear what is working for you and kind of share some best practices. I think when I got here, I would say for the first month, I was probably going to coffee like 3 or 4 times a week with people, just trying to like get oriented in the area. My entire strategy was just make sure that I'm meeting people in person and I'm getting my face up there as much as possible. So whether that's visiting a school classroom and doing some guest instruction, whether it's coffee with a private music teacher, whether it's volunteering, at auditions for the youth orchestra, then I want to be present. I just want people to see me in the community and be a part of that and learn where the best connections might be for me to potentially grow the studio. That type of working ahead, I think, is something that is underrated in a relocation because it's easy to wait until you get there because then you're physically present. But I was putting those coffee meetings on the calendar 3 to 4 weeks in advance and trying to really be intentional about how I was scheduling that and also respectful of other people's times too. If I'm asking for it last minute, sometimes it's a little stressful. So it was helpful to just kind of build that Rolodex, if you will, to use maybe more of a dated term, but just people that I had like met with in person and we talked face to face. And obviously sending emails and follow-up emails takes time too. So it's okay to start that process a little early. Even, now with the school year starting again, a couple of weeks before the school year starts, so I'm not hitting them right when all of the parent and administrative emails are starting is really helpful too.
Yeah, I would love to hear if you have any suggestions specifically for finding piano students, because it's a little bit different because they aren't necessarily in the band. They might be in the choir, but I've found myself that it can be hard to find them. I'm not sure always where they hang out. Like they hang out by themselves in the practice room a lot of the time.
The plight of the pianist. Yes. Well, it's interesting too, because I think depending on the instrument, there's different kinds of challenges. Just as one example, Facebook groups for piano, especially more like beginning to early intermediate piano and vocalists, phenomenally helpful. It can make a really, really big impact in studio. As a clarinet teacher, there's just less of us.
Yeah, true.
Like period in any area because there's so much more variety in the band program and all that good stuff. So when I post in a Facebook group for clarinet lessons, the amount of response that I'm going to get to a post compared to a piano or voice teacher is astronomically different. So I think in that regard, local social media can be a huge help for piano teachers. And as a quick little tip on that one, I think the gut reaction for a lot of musicians is to go into a Facebook group and just post like, again, my name is Kelly and here are my credentials and I teach piano lessons if you have any openings. In reality, what people read in there is going to be perceived in different ways depending on their knowledge and their experience. If you tell someone you went to Juilliard, but they're not a musician, they may not even know what that means, unfortunately. So credentials are helpful, but I'll frame it. It was just Amazon Prime Day. So I'll frame it in terms of Amazon. When you look at a listing on Amazon, you read the manufacturer's description, but it's the reviews that sell you on that product. The same thing applies here. Rather than talking about yourself, talk about the service, talk about what students enjoy in working with you. What do they have fun with? What do they like to do? Is your studio more competitive and more focused on exams and contests and competitions? Maybe it's more relaxed and fun. Again, be honest and specific about those things, because when a parent reads that in a Facebook group, the little light flips and they think, oh my gosh, that's me, or that's my child, or that's something we're really interested in. So social media can be really helpful. The other thing is, especially elementary general music programs are a phenomenal resource for piano teachers, because any of those students, a lot of them have not picked an instrument yet, or maybe haven't even considered lessons. But if they go home and say, oh my gosh, I just had the coolest experience in music class today, that's a really impactful way to start a new musician. And obviously then that parent is reaching out and asking for your information from that music teacher. I remember when I was a kid, that happened with me with Taekwondo. There was a demonstration at our school. They were like running on walls. And I was like, I want to do that like now. That is so cool. And went home and my mom signed me up for lessons at that exact same studio, like within 2 weeks. So it's helpful to be present and give a really good experience. And then the last thing I'd recommend. Example. Oh yeah. Like I think my mom actually is an aside. I think she saw me like trying to run on the dryer. Like I was like holding myself up, trying to like angle my feet. I was probably like 7. She's like, what are you doing? Like, what is going on? Like, they were running on the walls at school today. But yes, when you make an impact, it sticks. I still remember this all those years later. And then on the other kind of side of the marketing too, if we're trying to get out of schools, homeschool co-ops are a phenomenal resource. And also religious music programs and community music programs like church music directors. Having relationships with like children's choirs or in the homeschool co-ops, again, just groups of students that are gathering, even scout troops, Girl Scout and Boy Scout troops can be a great reference point too. Places where students are gathering in groups and are looking for activities and entertainment where we can, again, come in and do some kind of demonstration, get their hands on the keys and experience that themselves to make a really lasting impression.
Yeah, great.
And now a quick word from our premium brand partner, opus1.io.
With opus1.io, your billing just happens. Invoices go out automatically. Families get gentle reminders if they forget to pay. Payments are tracked in real time. You can even handle recurring or term-based billing without lifting a finger. And because it's all inside your Opus One platform, every payment is connected to the right student, class, or program. No double entry, no spreadsheets, no "where did that payment go" moments. Jessica, a school owner using Opus One, describes the relief. Opus One saved me time and money. I've been able to expand my business without hiring another admin. That's not just automation, that's freedom. And she's not alone. Hundreds of music schools across the country are using Opus One to simplify the one thing no one got into this business to do, billing. Because Opus One was built by music school owners for music school owners, we know that payments are more than transactions, they're relationships. When your billing is clear, accurate, and on time, it builds trust with families and confidence with your staff. You look more professional. You reduce stress. And suddenly, billing isn't a bottleneck or task you dread each week. It's just another thing that runs itself in the background while your school keeps growing. What else did I get when I took billing off my plate? Stay tuned.
So we've talked a little about social media as far as like posting in groups and Nextdoor and stuff. Can you talk a little about teachers' own social media, for instance, like our own Instagram page? What do you recommend as far as social media? Do you think that teachers should have a separate social media page for their studio, or should they be posting as themselves? What are your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of different strategy behind this, and it can go in a lot of different directions. I think the first recommendation I would make is if you are using your social media to just mainly stay in touch with your current students and current families, it's a little bit more casual and you can just have your studio page and maybe most of the posts that you're making are like still images or are updates or, studio closure, exciting things that are happening, congratulating students on things. There's a little bit more of a different intention behind the communication at that point. It's more just community building within the existing studio group that you have. The other alternate option that we have is growth mindset with the studio and the social media. If you're trying to recruit students through social media, I think it's important to note that it can happen. Like if you take Instagram, for example, TikTok, who knows what's going to happen with that one? RIP TikTok. We're not really sure on the US side of things where that's going. So we'll focus on Instagram mainly. I think Instagram as a resource is amazing because the algorithm can really show your content to people that are already consuming that type of content. So especially for more advanced students, fantastic way to get new student enrollments because you're demonstrating a certain level of exercise or of material and repertoire, and that can really, create a lot of interest there, or showcase the students that you're working with and kind of their journey and their process, which of course can speak to a parent as well. The thing about growth mindset on social media and that strategy is that not only do we need to be posting maybe a little bit more often to stay relevant and get more traction there, but the type of content also changes. We're not necessarily just posting about studio schedule or that kind of community building anymore. We're posting to get attention, we're posting to educate, and then we're posting to sell, to move people towards whatever your link is in bio or messaging you about lessons. So that strategy means that you have several different types of content that are going up. More broadly, you want content that, like I said, attracts attention and generates more followers and engagement. Usually that's giving an opinion on something or sharing an exercise that's really helped you or strategies that have helped you in your own personal practice and playing or things that are working for your students. A lot of like storytelling, this kind of shared experience type of content, like things that we can all kind of relate to or that your ideal student can relate to is really helpful. And then there's more the educational content. Like if they are that ideal student, here's what to do. Here's how to maybe fix that, like kind of giving some small tips on technique or on interpretation and stylistic differences. And then kind of the bottom of the funnel content then would be really the sales pitch. Like if this is all helpful for you, here's how to work with me, or I have openings for lessons. And I think no matter what you're posting on social media, you have to find what feels really authentic and genuine to you. As an example, again, when I was first starting on posting, I think maybe early 2021, at that point, it was really popular to do those voiceover reels. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like the audio and you have to model along with it just in case anyone has no idea what I'm talking about. And you would like act it out and put text on the screen to change the meaning. So that was the thing to do. So I started doing that. I hated it. Hated creating that content. After one or two videos, and I always struggled to define what it was that bothered me about it so much, but I would be on the verge of tears every time that we recorded that stuff because it felt so unlike me. And I was acting like I'm not an actor. I'm a clarinet player. Like I feel so out of my element here. What does feel comfortable though is I'm on Zoom calls all day talking to clients, and I'm in lessons all day talking to my students. Just talking to the camera is very comfortable for me. That's not the case for other people, of course, but that's something I'm used to. So when I stopped doing that and just started turning the camera on and talking about things that I cared about, sharing some of my opinions on studio building and on music school, not teaching a lot of these skills, and that was really what grew my account and took off a little bit faster for me. It's also a lot easier for me to create that content. It's actually fun for me to create that content. It's not a drag. I'm not crying every time that I do it. And it's important to find that too. So no matter what the strategy is that you're looking at, look at the content that you enjoy the most, things that are easiest for you to make on repeat, and the things that, of course, then on an analytics standpoint, perform well. And you're looking for a balance on those things. And it's okay to keep trying new things and keep experimenting. That's the only way you're going to find what works for you. But no two accounts will be the same because you have to find what genuinely works for you so you can show up that way. And then as a little note too, you can tell when you're watching an account if they haven't found that yet. It's usually in their eyes that the energy is off. Like whatever they're saying, they don't really not necessarily believe in, but they're not aligned with how they're saying it. There's just a mismatch in the energy, and subconsciously we all scroll right by that. So it's actually important to make sure you're having fun with it. It is something that you care about and feel really confident in.
Yeah. And if we show up authentically, I think that we're going to attract the people who are drawn to our authentic self, our ideal client.
Absolutely. That's such an important part of, candidly, this year has been a really big shift in my own marketing for Outside the Box, that most of our clients are finding us through Instagram. And that was that last little piece that I was missing, was in November and December of last year, just kind of allowing myself to maybe state a few opinions that I had been holding back on. They're not like hugely controversial opinions. Like, hey, I think music school should teach some entrepreneurship. I don't think that's a really big controversial opinion, but in talking about those things and being more honest about some of the frustrations I've had in my own career, the clients that are reaching out and the teachers that are reaching out, we have this shared experience and it feels really aligned. And we say the same thing in our studios that are posting on social media. When you talk about your journey and you talk about the things that have helped you, it helps someone say, I would like that too. And now I want to work with this particular teacher because of that alignment and that honesty.
Yeah, for sure. Can you share a few other mistakes that you see teachers making in their marketing?
We talked a little bit about that kind of blanket email. That would be the one of the biggest things I would avoid, is just that little language change. How can I help you instead of, here's how you can help me kind of email. The other thing I think that get not missed, but maybe we get in our head a little bit about is following up with leads, with potential contacts. There are, in our data that we collect with our clients, we usually see the most responses to an email, either to a student lead or to a school contact on like the 4th or the 5th email. And that sounds so absurd. But if we put ourselves in the shoes of that parent or of that teacher, or even just thinking about your own email inbox and how chaotic it is, it's really easy to lose things that are not an immediate fire that needs to get put out. So obviously, we send that first email. If they don't answer, that's not the end of the world. And in fact, we're not surprised by that. It really does need some follow-up and some persistence to get those responses. I shared with a client yesterday an example. On our website, there's this really beautiful video that a great colleague of ours locally did. He's a fantastic jazz trumpet player, Sam Neufeld out of Miami University, just really, really stunning. And also this great videographer, and he does a lot of video and photo for musicians. We met in like October of 21 about that video with Sam. And I don't think it ended up happening until February of 22. And in between that period, he was emailing me and following up. But like we got married and we went on our honeymoon and we were busy and there was a lot going on. And he knew all of that because he is a friend of ours. But he just every couple of weeks would just send me a little nudge and say, hey, so do you want to do this? You still interested? Now the time? Are you ready yet? What do you think? And I ignored all those emails until one day I just paid the invoice. I was like, all right, I'm ready. Let's book it. And it probably took about 4 months. That didn't annoy me. I had told Sam I was interested. And if I wasn't, I would have just told them like, hey, change my mind, or this isn't the move right now. It's the same thing for our students or parents. They told you that they're interested. They've reached out to you, on a Facebook post, or they sent you an email. They are interested unless they tell you otherwise. And at that point, obviously we're not, emailing them every day or anything like that, but email them once a week and just follow up and say, hey, I know you had reached out about lessons. Schedule's getting a little full for fall. Are you still interested in talking about this? Or are you still looking for lessons? Or have you found a teacher yet? Just quick little yes or no questions. And I think that's another small mistake I see in communication a lot. Ending emails with let me know or when you're ready kind of communication, that very passive. It feels very polite, but it's also really hard to answer that email because it puts it in their court fully. A quick yes or no or either or question at the end is really helpful. Like, are you interested? Or would you like to have a meeting? Or, instead of let me know when a good time is for you to have a phone call, do mornings or afternoons work better for you for a phone call? Giving a little option at the end makes a really big impact in those results as well. And then I think the final thing on the mistakes that I would mention is just, as we've talked about a little bit before, not being intentional about who you're trying to market towards. I talk to teachers sometimes that'll say, I can teach anybody, like any age, any level. I'm totally fine with that. I just want students, anyone that'll pay. That's a really, common response. But in reality, as you dig into it, everyone has preferences. Like there are students that you just can help more because of your background and experience in education that you do enjoy working with from a personality standpoint or interest standpoint. And the more honest you are about that, the easier it is, again, for a parent to read that or a student to read that and align with it and choose you faster. It makes the decision a lot quicker.
And now a quick word from our premium brand partner, opus1.io.
When we switched to Opus One at my school, I didn't just save time, I got peace of mind. I stopped worrying about missed invoices or awkward payment reminders. Everything was automatic, accurate, and organized. And the best part? That freed up my time to let me focus on what actually moves the needle. Mentoring my teachers, planning recitals, and connecting with families. And I wasn't alone in unlocking critical time to focus on growth. Schools using Opus One grow an average of 40% in their first 18 months. So if billing is stealing hours from your week and mental space from your day, it's time to change that. Visit opus1.io and see how simple, seamless, and stress-free invoicing can be. Because when your systems take care of the admin, you can take care of the music. And that's what Opus One is all about.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kelly. So I do want to touch briefly on step 3 of your process, which is the repeatable enrollment process. So tell us just briefly why that's important and what do teachers need to do to set that up?
It's really helpful to have a next step. So some kind of call to action on your website, on your flyer, if someone's going to reach out to you, they need to know what's happening next and understand kind of the flow of that relationship ongoing. So most studios that we work with will offer a free consultation initially. You can offer a free trial lesson. That's always an option on the table. I think free trial lessons, in my professional opinion, are a really great fit for a new teacher, someone who doesn't have a lot of student testimonials, a lot of, kind of social proof, if you will, from testimonials that they help these kind of students and they get results. If you're new or you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of those, a trial lesson is a great way to show that in a short period. But if you already have that established, if you've got a testimonial page with 10, 15 testimonials from parents, you've got some great Google reviews, we don't need to be offering that. At that point, someone's already read that information. They're coming to you because they know the results that you get and the experience you provide, and they've already selected that you're someone they're really interested in working with. So I like to do a consultation instead. And there's 3 parts to a consultation. The first thing is that we would interview the student, and that would be about their interests and their goals and why they want to take lessons. Maybe we're looking for any kind of indication that maybe the student isn't as interested and mom and dad are kind of pushing for the lessons, and that for some teachers is exciting and for some not so much. So, asking some of those really particular questions, asking about any accommodations that a student might need in their learning, asking about music that they want to learn and where they want to focus their time and attention in lessons is really helpful to ensure that alignment. If it's someone that I feel excited about working with, then talking through the rest of my program and talking about getting started is so easy for me. So now we're talking about the experience that I provide, what they can expect in lessons, what that atmosphere is, and also what is included in tuition beyond just the actual teaching time one-on-one. And at the end of that, we would talk about policies and tuition. As many times as we send the policy to a parent, they're probably not going to read the silly thing. So it's really helpful if we can just talk about those things on a consultation. And I find that fitting all of that in also with a trial lesson is a lot. That usually is going to go over time or take a lot of energy. It's also a little bit harder to schedule that because you're trying to work within your open lesson schedule. It's really helpful if you can have a consultation on Zoom, have that conversation face to face. You don't have to come into the studio right away. But then you can also record it and make sure that they have a copy if they're interested, if they want to review that again. Or if there was something that you weren't sure about and you want to think about it before you say yes to that student, you can go back and watch the recording again as like a little gut check, especially for teachers that are traveling. If you're going to go into someone's house for lessons, I would definitely recommend this. Or even if students are traveling to your home studio, having a recorded Zoom call means that you can, run that by a partner or a friend or a colleague and just say like, maybe I had a weird feeling about this. And am I missing something? Or what are your thoughts here too? Just in case it's helpful if you want to run that by someone and have that a second opinion too. But all that to say, the consultation is really where the sale happens. It's where all the pricing conversation happens. It's really helpful to just direct everybody to that call so that we're not exchanging back and forth on email. I'm not trying to text them my prices and get them enrolled from there, which is a little bit more tricky. And then also because we're on that call, we can make a decision. We can talk about scheduling. We can make sure everything's really aligned and get a lot more done really efficiently there too.
Yeah, that's really good. So it seems like the trial lesson is more for the perspective is from the parent trying out the teacher to see if they even want to pursue it. Whereas the consultation, it's a little more professional. It's you sort of interviewing the student and the parent, and obviously a conversation where they're getting to know you as well, but it gives you a chance to see if this is the right fit for your studio.
Absolutely. And I think something that I like about consultations is if at any point in that interview, it's just not the vibe, as my students would say, if it's not a fit, then we can pause. And I can always say, based on the goals that you have or the things that we're talking about today, I actually think you'd be a really great fit for my colleague so-and-so. Is it okay? I obviously, if you're interested in working with me or you talk to her and it's not quite a good fit, then of course we can circle back. But would it be okay if we just pause here and I introduce you to her? Because I really feel strongly that'd be a great option for you. And parents and students appreciate that too. You're not just taking everyone's money. You're making sure it's that right fit. And that also, by the way, has resulted in other student referrals for my studio because parents know if they refer to me, then I will direct accordingly as opposed to just enrolling anyone that reaches out to me. So that's actually built a lot of word of mouth in the community as well.
Nice. Is there anything else that you want to share for teachers about marketing in general?
I think the one thing that comes to mind, we talked about the follow-up, I think, and like the authenticity on social media, it's really important that you find the marketing that works for you specifically. It's going to look a little bit different for everyone. Some teachers, like the idea of being in front of a classroom of students is just not a fit. And that's totally fine. That doesn't mean you still can't do school outreach and help and support them in other ways. Maybe you're offering resources instead of like guest instruction with the whole class, or you're offering sectionals with small groups, for example. But finding the offer that feels aligned and supportive and really authentic to you means that the marketing will be more successful. And then with that too, it's going to take some experimentation. It's going to take some time to find those things. When we relocated, I'd done a lot of that work in advance, and I already had kind of built some of these processes up for myself in other places before we moved again to Wisconsin. So I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on what those marketing tactics were that usually worked for me and were aligned for me. My studio after relocation, within 2.5 months after our move, had 43 students. It grew really, really fast. But again, I had just relocated and left all my students behind because we weren't online at that point. So it was my full-time job. Like I was marketing as much as possible and trying to get in the community as much as possible. So just know that your pacing with your authentic representation of yourself and the marketing that really feels aligned, you'll find the most aligned students. And you just have to play around with it a little bit to find the things that work for you, because it's not one size fit all. You don't have to copy their studios or their social media accounts. Find your thing and your voice.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, this has been so valuable. I know that teachers are going to want to get in touch with you and learn more and possibly work with you further. Can you tell teachers where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually offer a free strategy session on the Outside the Box website. So outsidethebox.com. And in the top right corner, there's a little button for the free strategy session. It's just an introductory call where we'll talk through your ideal student and we'll talk through some of your tuition rates and do some calculations together. Make sure that the current studio data and the goals are really aligned. And then we will talk through an action plan for you, step by step, of how we're going to make that happen and how we can reach those goals. Talk about the marketing in more detail, in particular, and a lot of the structure around the marketing and website, social media, all that good stuff. But that is a great opportunity if you're even just trying to figure out if you want to teach full time, if you're not really sure what this looks like for you or how the studio could look like, or what the studio would look like rather as a full-time business. That's a really great chance to just parse through everything and see if it's a fit. So there's no sales pitch on an initial call. If you're interested, we can talk about another point, but it's a really good way to just kind of get oriented and get some mentorship from myself and other teachers on our team who are kicking butt and have really awesome, really, really cool studios. So that would be my number one recommendation, is to take advantage of that. And then the other thing I'll just throw out there, I am very active on Instagram in particular. So if you're looking for other free resources and information, Instagram and YouTube are great places to get that from us as well.
Yeah. And just to clarify, Outside the Box is BACHS.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes. I have a very bad sense of humor. So yes, meant to be a pun. It's not BOX. It's spelled like Johann Sebastian. So outside the BACHS.com.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for taking time to share with us. This was really, really good. And I know teachers are going to love listening and learning from you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Rachel. Again, I appreciate it.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed tuning into our episode today. And if you haven't already subscribed to the TopMusic Piano Podcast, you are missing out on a world of incredible interviews and discussions with Rachel and her guests. Make sure you go and check it out. Just search for the TopMusic Piano Podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this show. It'd be great if you go and check it out. That's the end of the show this week. I hope it's been helpful for you. Next week on the podcast, I'm joined by Jonathan Kuskowski, who chairs the Department of Entrepreneurship and Leadership at the University of Michigan School of Music, Theatre and Dance. And we're talking all things value. Oftentimes the equation in marketing, we're talking about all the things we give students, but we don't remember to talk so much about the value and the transformation that we provide and value adds that we can sell as well. We're going to be talking about those ways that we can package and sell what we do in a more transformative kind of way. I can't wait to share that episode with you. It's a great one. It's coming up next week. Until then, I'm Tim Topham and you've been listening to the Topcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages both now and into the future? I created our TopMusic Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, TopMusic Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.